Hello and welcome back. As you can see, I'm having a play with a 01 master controller here and a slave unit. I've got a couple of models here, the Class 25 R.068 from the late 70s and a spare 060 chassis, both fitted with the modules. I think the modules are R.955, master controller R.950 and the slave is R.951. I'm just getting to grips with just running the two models and getting the keypad working. I've had the control units for a little while, but just with a communication with somebody else this week, I've got into playing with this. And then I thought I'd get a little more serious, and I've disconnected all of my usual controllers, so there's no connection to the track, and taken all of the other models off because the two systems aren't compatible. And there we've got the Class 25, and you can see the lights are burning away really nicely there. So they do tend to get a little bit hot when they're on the rails here. They stay on even when the locomotive is stopped. Watch this. A slight stutter there. Now this model does stutter there anyway on the traditional control, so that its wheel spacing is just right, so it's on plastic on both sides, one after another, so it doesn't really help. And I have had a couple of issues with this point coming up here, and it's number 1B with it, which we'll see in a little while. There we go, we'll back it up through the points. And then we'll just crawl it forward. Now at low speeds it does have the sound and feel of using these traditional Hornby controllers. You can see at the bottom of the frame there on the half wave setting. There's quite a lot of noise from the motor. And we are getting a flicker from the bulbs. That's not from an effect from the camera. I can see that through the eye, as it were. There we go, and she cuts out there. So we'll just move that forward off the points, and then we'll have to press the reset button, because that's triggered an overload on the controller. There we go. So we'll just clear the fault, and she just springs back into life again at the same level of power as I left it. We'll crawl that back through again. That forward and reverse button is very, very noisy, isn't it? See, at that speed that came through quite nicely, so, and in reverse, as it were, but forwards she cuts out each time there, unless you're carrying enough speed to get through it. So we'll just shuffle that forwards again. We'll clear the error. Slight stutter there, and then we'll roll it back. So no problems at that speed in that direction, so just a tiny bit more speed here. And there's no real issue with that at all. So the other interesting thing with these controllers is the inertia setting. So we're selecting inertia, we'll put it at level 3, locomotive 1, enter, and full power on, and watch what happens. There are 4 levels of inertia available. This is level 3 I've chosen here. It's quite entertaining. I'm not sure I could get the hang of bringing one of these into the station like this through the point work, but perhaps it could be good fun. I'm sure it's a big selling point at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. Not much of a problem with the Diamond at that speed, but just a little stutter. So we'll take the power right out. So we're off the gas, as it were. Have that gentle stop. So we'll have a different model now. It's chipped to number 3. And see, this is a little cruder with one of these 060 chassis. And then we'll give it some inertia. We'll go for number 3. And I have to point out I'd forgotten I'd left the model running in the direction she's currently going to run. But we'll stick with it. See, at that low speed it really does sound like it's on the half wave, and they do generate a fair bit of heat, these models, when they're running on the railway with this controller, I've noticed. and then we'll take out the power. And it takes a fair old time to wind down. There we go. Yeah, that forward reverse switch is really very manual, isn't it? For a digital controller, you'd think it would be more of an electrical switch. It sounds like very sprung loaded. And then she's almost at full power again. That tears around the railway. Yeah, I think you could have had pretty good fun with this. So this is just a limited try of the system I thought I was going to have, but I ended up playing with this for the entire week, as we'll see in a moment. Slight stutter on that point there. I have given the track work a fairly good old clean. It does pick up the dirty tracks quite well. It shows up very quickly if you've got dirtier areas than others. A lot of chatter from the motor there. Just crawl it across the point. That's not too bad. This chassis doesn't seem to cut out on this point like the Class 25. Yeah, so the wheels are all cleaned up, but it's still picking up little bits of dirt and stutters here and there. The earlier footage you've just seen, I thought I would probably just put this lot away again and pick it up at a later date. So I'm thinking that my plan would be to do a conversion over to 01 just for a very limited period when I was planning on getting rid of this railway and dismantling it. So I was thinking I'd probably take the catenary off it, because I don't think you can use the 01 with the catenary, and do a conversion over, make everything live, and just choose a handful of models which I could use as an experiment that I don't have to butcher too much. So I don't really want to make too many permanent modifications to models in the long run, because whilst this is a bit of fun, I really don't want to destroy any models, to be honest. So as we saw in that earlier footage, I've got all of the standard models off the track, so only at the moment have I got on models which have the chips or the modules in, and I've gone ahead and converted the Class 31, the experimental one I've been playing with over the last few months for various things. Princess we saw, I think, last week. I've got a couple of Ginty chassis, or 060 chassis. These are sort of spare chassis. I've got them converted over this one. I think we've already seen that one running. That's another one. I haven't recoded the chips. I've just used them as they've come to me. So I've just put the numbers on. So strangely, I've got two number 3s. So I suppose that's just how it goes. This one runs slightly rougher than this one, but I think that's probably got more to do with the motor than the motor and the chassis, rather than the chip and the electrics in it. So I've completely unwired, as I mentioned before in the earlier clips. So I've taken away, I didn't show it, so there's no direct connection to these controllers to the railway at all, apart from this one here, which is the auxiliary power supply, which powers the point work only. So I've still got electric points, so you can just, there we go. So you can see all the point work still works. There's no direct connection with the rails at all, so that's completely independent. LEDs are on, so the signals are on, and they come from their own individual power supply there. So that's powering the controller that does the points. Excuse me, bending down here, and we'll plug in the 01 whilst we're at it. There we go. So the other two controllers are unplugged at the moment, and this is a slave off this one, but it's completely unconnected from the railway at the moment. So I have got a few other items. The modules, I've got quite a handful, a couple in boxes there which are quite interesting. So one of them still got its price on there, £6.95, and fairly interesting stuff on the back about the capacitor and so on. There's a slightly different capacitor in this one. Again, they must have changed their mind after printing these cards and put these pieces of paper on the back. In one of these booklets, there's 2 editions. I got a 4th edition for fitting modules, so that's the 4th one, which presumably is the most current. There's not a great deal to see. There's lots and lots of diagrams on how to convert over many of the models. They've done an awful lot of work. They're saying models between 65 and 1980 there. So that does encompass quite a few crude models, doesn't it? I have got a Britannia, which has definitely had a conversion done at one point, and that mail order Princess, I'm fairly certain, has been converted. So here's an auxiliary or an extra piece of paper which has been slotted in concerning the fitting of the capacitor and showing how that's to wire up. So I've got some fresh capacitors of the same value. I've just included those in. Interestingly, they're not shown in the diagrams initially printed in the book, so I think this was put in at a later date, perhaps as a revision. So it makes quite interesting reading. Making a turntable, you can make the turntable work with a module, obviously, but then you've got to isolate the bridge. I haven't looked fully into that. I'm not even going to attempt that at present. So that's quite an interesting little book. And there's the third version. So presumably there was versions 1 and 2 before this. I won't go through this. It all. I imagine the text of one of the diagrams changes slightly, but I haven't actually spotted the difference in there. So yeah, these have just been cut out of locomotives, I think, and just stuffed in a bag, along with the ones that I have already. The later ones, I believe, you can code. Instead of twisting wire through the ends of them, you can use electrically conductive paint. So there's an old tube of the stuff or an old bottle of the stuff, which I got as a separate purchase. I quite like that. I don't think that'll be terribly good to use anymore. In anticipation of playing with this a little bit, I bought some more contemporary electric conductive paint, which I haven't had a go with yet, so I'm looking forward to trying that at some point. And there's various things I've printed off the internet to help me get up and running and have some fun there. So there's the coding chart. I'm not sure which version this is. I think this one is more for using the electric paint. The earlier version, you'd twist wire through, and it says you mustn't use solder. And there's sort of some general running instructions for the controllers. I don't have a handbook for the controllers. And as a separate purchase too, I have bought one of these, which was an accessory module which I could control some of the electric points, so I could begin to make this unit, select the point number, and then tell it which direction to throw the point blades. So one of these modules, let's see if I can encourage this one out of the packet. One of these modules would be able to control 4 accessories. You can do colour light signals as well, and you can choose whether you have a continuous burst of power, or, so I'm using the wrong words, whether you can have a short burst of power to throw a point blade, or points, or continuous power, so you can illuminate a signal perhaps, and that has an interesting coding method all of its own. Let's just pop that down there. I don't know whether I can shake out the associated pieces in there. So there's some little pin connectors for the ends of the cabling for the point motors, and that little strip of plastic there with fingers on it, you can remove the fingers to create different codes. So I believe you could have up to 99 accessories. Obviously you need the right amount of these. One of the things I've been reading about is that to throw a pair of points, you need to double up on these. So you have, so if your points are numbered 22 or 21, you need another one of these so you can have 22 and 21 to throw in tandem. You can't have two accessories on the one outlet, which seems odd. I don't know whether these are just too weak and feeble to throw 2-point motors and the electrics can't do it, or Hornby just wanted to sell more of these. I'm not quite sure. I need to do some more research on that. Booklet that comes with this is quite interesting. It's very curly, so I don't think we'll go through this page by page, but it's just got, there you go, that's how you set up the fingers on that little coding piece of plastic to push in the edge there, so you can tell it to have either continuous or a short burst of power to throw the points. And I don't know whether I'm going the right direction. This is far too curly to have a look at. I think you can also code, there we go. So you can sequentially code which number of accessories you've got by changing the fingers on there. Quite an interesting system, rather than programming the microprocessor by a computer. You're doing proper manual changes to it. So I don't know whether this is wonderfully low tech or very, very optimistic. Probably a bit of both. So let's have a little bit of a play with this. So it is my intention to try and give this a bit of a run as I back out of this layout and dismantle it. But there are a couple of other things I want to do, and it's still sort of lots of fun to be had. So I believe when you turn the controller on, number one or module number one is always associated with the master controller. So in this instance, I think that's the, I can't remember what model that is now. I know we looked at it earlier, it's a Class 25 I think. I can't remember the model number, so that's got module number one in it. So that's on the master controller here. So if I go controller 2, model 3, enter. So now this controller should do the Class 31. I don't know whether I can hold that up and we can see it all in the distance. And these older motors really do have that sort of half-wave sound about them. So there we go. So I can back that up. So I imagine you would have been very excited getting one of these, and I was as a teenager. I got these. If you have a look at the insert picture there, you see these old black and white pictures from a contact sheet. You can see my 8x4 layout with the 01 controller in the corner. Very, very basic. I was disappointed with it. I couldn't get it to run very nicely, and it was all lots of stalls. And I lost interest fairly shortly after I'd got it all set up, but it was a frustrating time, and other things were more important, I suppose. Anyway, back to this one. I've got more time, well, not more time, certainly more concentration. Time is really an issue at the moment. So let's get them both running round, have a bit of a look at them. Oh, I've got there's we saw that one running a bit earlier. That's got chipped up at number 3. So I say I'll just use the same numbers that are already on them. So I've got 2 models of number 3, unfortunately, so they would run together. And that one's at 5. This one runs a bit cruder, but the motor, I think, and the chassis is a bit poorer on this one. This is a much smoother runner, all nice and clean. So let's give them a little bit of power. So there we go. Those lights glowing away nicely. And let's get the Class 31 underway. We'll see if I can stand back. So I know this is very crude control, and I'm not in any way suggesting that this is better than contemporary digital command control, but this is just fun, and as I had it as a child, it means quite a bit to me to have a play with it. I've been avoiding the issue for quite some time, and just in conversations with someone I've been speaking to recently, it just fired me up to sort of get it out of the box again and begin to have a bit more of a serious play, but let's see if we can catch up the other side now. So she's gone off there in the distance. I think we'll bring this one to a stop, and we'll bring the Class 31 there. Let's give it a bit more power. We'll stop that one there, and I think we'll open up some points. Let's see if we can get that onto the elevated section. I haven't actually tried the elevated section yet, and we need 1 and 2, sorry, 3. There we go. So let's give that a go. So I haven't made all of the points live, so there are some little clips which I think I just forgot to show there. So unless you wire them, I suppose hardwire them, Hornby made some little clips and still do. I believe they're still part of the range of products. The ones I've got are in quite a new packet. We just back that off. There we go. Let's see how she does with the diamond crossing again. Extra pickups on there, so that really helps. So I'm just going to bring that there, and I'll get both the trains on the one line. So I just need to back that up. Never do quite get that stopped at that point. There we have it. So let's switch that one. I think we'll close up the elevated section. Hear an emergency vehicle in the background. So let's just move that forward. So again, I think the element of having many trains on one line and the concentration of keeping track of where they're going doesn't change just because it's digitally controlled. Oops, there we go. Just losing track of that one. I was looking at something else for a moment. So I think what we'll do is open 7, which is just there. And let's see how that model does coming through there. So this is moving on to the same line as the Class 31 now. Stop that before we run into it, and then we'll close up number 7. Sorry, I'm wandering around a bit quick. Totally unrehearsed this. So we'll close that in the background. So I don't know whether we can get all of that in the shot at the same time, so they're both on the same line. Let's move the Class 31 away. And chase it with the other one. And stop it. Let's see if I can get a bit more. I can chase it that way. And back up the other way towards it. That'd be a good trick. So definitely going to have an accident at this stage. And we'll make it go forward. So I suppose there could be lots of childish fun had like this. Let's see if I can bring it round behind it. crashing through the point work there. And that's chasing up behind now. And I'm going to back that up a bit. Enough silliness perhaps. So let's catch up with a 31 again. So there's both trains sitting on the same line. The lights are still on their Class 25 there. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little bit of fun. We'll just have a quick glance at the 1980 catalogue here. But it's been quite a week getting involved in this. I hadn't expected it to happen. And it's just sort of born of a conversation and having had these things bought. So I think last December I tried to buy this. There was a failed eBay purchase which didn't go to plan. They don't always work out. Here we go. Very often do, but sometimes there's the odd disaster. So I think when we look at these items here, I've got the master controller. So I think available 79 through into the mid-80s, and then I think the production stopped. I think in other markets that might be different. I think they marketed this globally, especially in the United States. We've got the slave unit, R.951, and the loco modules, R.955, and the accessory operating module, which was that, that's the one in this box here. So for use with 01 only, it's just out of reach. I don't know where those little spring clips have gone, but I had a packet of them. So that's the accessory module. So I'm getting sidetracked. So there are some of those little point clips for making the points live in there. If you see those little things that look like quite large staples, so you can use those to unisolate your point work. So they come in, I can't remember how many are in a packet there, probably 8. Is it 8? 2 per point, 4 points, 8. Mathematics. It would be something like that. So I believe the 01 controller, it did show up in the 79 catalogue. If you have a look at the insert, the initial images look slightly different to this, the way it eventually showed up. So they must have, I think if they were in the 79 catalogue, maybe they were being photographed in 78 perhaps, with just proving models and dummies for the factory. But good for the time, very crude I think. But I think I'm going to have a little fun with it at some point in the next few months. As I back out of this particular layout, I think it will be a good opportunity. We'll certainly have a go with some of these modules, accessory modules, and see if we can make some of the point work with them. Although my layout is already, all of the points are already wired back to the controller, so I'm just having to think about how I might do that. Well, rather than placing the modules next to the points, I think as the cabling all neatly runs back to the controller, the modules could all be situated there. But yeah, so I'm having fun with it. Sorry to put in a video like this, but that's what's going on with the railway, so that's the newer version of what we've got. But if you have a look back next time, we'll have a look at something else. I'm going to try and swap this railway back so I can use it as I've been using it, but I have also got myself another controller. This controller on the end here is giving me problems, developing an awful squeak in there, and it does slightly pick up power sometimes when I'm trying to slow things down, which is unusual. So I think it's probably either needs opening up and some serious action taken on the inside, or time to replace. And I think possibly time to replace. I'm quite excited about the replacement for these, because again, these were quite good fun. they certainly look the part, but I need to do some rethinking about the point switches to make that work, but I'll show you in next week's video. But let's just have a look at this one running, shall we? Let's put one of these models, let's throw some more points. Let's go number 1 and number 2 again, and we'll put the Class 31 on the inside this time. Let's move the catalogue off the track. I'm going for the wrong controllers, so let's bring that through. There we go, and then we'll close up that point work again. 2, and let's see if I can put on model number 5, because we've already got a model number 3. See if I can do this without shorting it out, so that triggers the red lamp on the. Sorry, I'm not pointing at the railway there. So if I assign the controller, so what I want to do is, we'll just put it on the master controller, I think. Which way round have I got this? Class 31 on the, yeah, so let's put it on the master controller. So that's engine 5, enter, so I believe that will bring it onto here. So if you have a short, you get the overload button on, and if you have some sort of coding error, when you type it in, you get an error there. And I have had an intermittent connection in here, but I have cleaned that up. That's working out much better now. So I'm thinking model number 5 may well move now if all is well. There we go. Now this is a particularly crude chassis. It's just one that's been lying around. It's rough to start with, but it does definitely have that half-wave sound about it. Let's give that a bit of power going backwards, and then a little bit more. Yeah, and also the wheel flanges on this are not what they could be. It's an older model. So actually, why don't I take the Class 31 off, and then we'll put the other model number 3 on. And let's just take that off the line. There we go. Sorry, I'm not pointing the camera at the stuff again. And I'm getting very mixed up with forwards and backwards with these as well. And I believe one of these chassis isn't magnetised the right way around, just like the Class 31. So now if I've got number 3, whoops, I don't know whether we've hooked into that. There's no couplings on one of those chassis. So that's a much smoother chassis. And that is later wheel flanges on that. And then let's have the other one, other direction. Yeah, so it's not as happy on the rails, this one. Can run quite slow. So all of these models, I have noticed, do generate more heat than they do running traditionally. I don't know whether that's normal or not, but the motors all don't they don't overdraw, if you know what I mean. They're freshly magnetised. Everything's clean, but even the Ringfield and the Class 31, they all sort of definitely run a lot warmer than they usually do. So I can't remember as a child whether that was always the case. So those wheel flanges are probably a little bit too crude for this track, which there's a little bit of bouncing on sleeper chairs going on there, I think. I think these ones are a little kinder. So yeah, so thanks again for watching. It really is hugely appreciated. So we'll have a look at my plans for a replacement for that next week. Also that box of track which has arrived from Dave, we'll have a quick glance over that. But I'll see you next time. Thanks again. It's hugely appreciated. Goodbye now.